I'm Laura Martin, Miss Mayo 2021, and this is my interview with the Pageant Project.
Hey everyone, it's Adrian from the Pageant Project with you, and my special guest for today is Laura Martin, who is Miss Mayo 2021. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on the show.
Don't say that just yet. Wait till the end before you give us such high praise. Before we start, I just wanted to ask, the name Miss Mayo, that's a place that you come from? Is that a city? Is it a county? It's an unusual name.
It's a county. I know, it's a county it's a county in Ireland, so it's in the west of Ireland. So I lived there for, now I think it's coming up to about 3 years. I've been living in Mayo, so I decided to enter. I'm not from Mayo originally. I'm from Cork, so I'm from South. So I entered Miss Mayo when I was living there.
Right. Okay. Because as I said, when I saw it, I just kept thinking of mayonnaise. So, Miss Mayo. So what about we start with, how did you get involved in pageantry to begin with? Let's start with the easy stuff.
This is actually my first year entering a pageant. I applied for one a couple of years ago, and I was moving at the time, and it just didn't work out for me. And I think now I'm a lot more confident in who I am as a person and kind of what I believe in. So I think now entering for Miss Mayo 2021 was definitely the ideal year for me to enter.
And did you see an Instagram ad? Was it a friend that referred you?
So it was a friend.
Watch it growing up?
Yeah, I watched it growing up. I watched all the girls growing up, and I saw all the Miss Cork win. It was actually a friend of mine that sent me the entry form, and they were like, "You should definitely go for this." And I was like, "Oh, I was always like, oh, you'd watch these girls win it, and and then I kind of looked at myself and I was like, I could be one of these girls that win it. This is something that I inspire to do and to be."
So, I mean, you said that you watched it growing up. So did you have the problem that a lot of girls do? Sometimes they have the preconceptions about what pageants are about, or did you, because you watched it growing up, you pretty much knew what they were actually about?
I did. I had a fair idea what they were about, because I did have a few friends that won Miss Ireland and won Miss Universe Ireland. So I always kind of knew what was going on. I suppose for entering something, I kind of had to have an idea of what I was getting myself into, because it is definitely a commitment. And it's something that I wanted to give 110%. So I definitely did my research before I entered.
So what made you, what were the aspects of it that made you decide to make that commitment? Because as you said, it's a significant time commitment as well as a financial commitment. So what made you decide, yes, this is something I definitely want to be doing?
Because I genuinely see myself as a role model for young women, young girls, because I am a volunteer myself, and I have been now for years. I'm a youth mentor with Foróige. So I'm a big sister with Foróige's Big Brother, Big Sister mentoring program. And I feel like I'd be entering this for the right reason. I'd be entering this because I want to be a role model for younger girls, so they can look up to someone, and they can look up to Miss Ireland and I don't know, maybe a future Miss World, and be like, we can aspire to be like Laura. I've gone through years of education. I've done all volunteering and charity work. Like, that is my main passion. I co-host a podcast myself. So I think I wanted the young girls to see, wow, we can actually do it all, because we see Miss Ireland do it. So why can't I do it?
You mentioned, is it Foróige? I wanted to ask you how to pronounce it. Is it Foróige?
It's Foróige, yeah.
Foróige. Okay, forgive my pronunciation. I'm sure I'm butchering it. It has an accent over. Does it have an accent over one of the letters? Because I've never seen that before. Is that an Irish thing?
Yeah, so it's a fada. There's a fada over the. Oh, I'm pretty sure. I'd have to double check that now myself. There's a fada over it. Yeah, so it's pronounced Foróige. So I'm a big sister with the Big Brother, Big Sister mentoring program, which is under the Foróige umbrella.
Okay, can you tell us more about that? Because I saw that, and it's one of the things I wanted to chat to you about. So what's involved in being a big sister?
So it's, as I was saying, I'm a volunteer. So every week I meet with a young girl. It's the same girl every week. And I suppose I help her work on her confidence and lead her to a brighter future. And any issues she's having, any problems, anything that might be going on at school, anything that might be going on at home, that she has someone to talk to about it. And I suppose myself, and being involved with charities for so long and volunteering, I kind of see a lot of younger children and they're victims of their own circumstance. And I suppose that's just something that I wanted to help a younger girl be like, look, there is a brighter future here for you, and I can definitely help guide you in the right direction. So yeah, it's every single week. And so we do workshops, there's like online book clubs, we go for teas and coffees, and we go to bookshops. And I suppose it's just having someone there that can talk. Maybe that's not a family member, maybe it's just somebody it's a bit different, and that can help them with their confidence and any problems. And as I said, it just lead them to a brighter future, basically.
And do you work with the same, is it one girl and you take them on basically for life, or is it one girl for like a term? How does that work?
So it's one girl, and it's like how long? So first initial commitment is a year. I'm coming up to 2 years now. So it goes on until they're 18. So they can enter, they're referred in usually. With Foróige, it's different. They're like a club. But with the big brother, big sister, it's individual. So they're usually referred in by maybe a teacher, maybe by a family member, a social worker, and maybe they've gone through trauma in their life, or, you know, maybe it's just a lack of confidence, maybe it's bullying, it could be abuse, it could be anything. And they are referred in. So then you work with them every single week and just help them, as I said, brighter future, help them with their confidence, any issues they're having. So yeah, it could go on for 5+ years.
All right. And so when they're referred in, as you said, they're referred in, so they have some issues in their life. Working in it, as you said, coming up almost to 2 years. What sort of issues have you seen, without disclosing obviously private information, but what are the issues that have tended to come up working with these young women?
I think the main one is confidence. I think, I don't know, is it an Irish thing, but I think as girls hit a certain age, they're going into secondary school, they're turning 13, 14, they've lost a lot of confidence in themselves. And I think that's the main issue that we see with younger women in Ireland, that they feel like that they lack the confidence, that they might not feel like that they inspire too much. But I think myself being a volunteer and maybe kind of seeing a bit of her in me when I was younger, I got the confidence through sports. I was an Irish gymnast, so that's where my confidence came from. And I think as I got older, I reflected and been like, no, I can help younger girls get their confidence back. And it could be through sports, it could be through any activity, it could be through reading, it could be through art. It could be we go to the museum, it can be anything like that. And I suppose that's how I kind of got into it.
And the sports is definitely a huge part. I don't think it's an Irish thing. I mean, obviously, young women around the world deal with confidence issues, young men as well.
Yeah.
But what I have noticed working closely with a lot of the Irish competitors is that, and to an extent, the UK competitors as well, it's very much almost apologizing whenever you're taking up space, right? The analogy I use, and this is a silly one, but if you're in a shopping center, probably doesn't happen that often during COVID, but if you were in a shopping center and someone banged a trolley into you or bumped a trolley into you, you would then apologize to them. It was almost like, oh, sorry, for getting in your way. Has that been an issue that you sort of noticed? It's almost apologizing for taking up space rather than owning it?
I 100% agree. I think it's people apologizing because, as you said, they're taking up space or they're trying to be their authentic self, and they're apologizing for who they are, and they're apologizing because they're confident in who they are. And if I had something to say and I would apologize after, whatever I'm saying, it doesn't sound like I'm confident in it. So I apologize because I don't want to offend anyone, but because I'm confident in my voice and what I'm trying to say. But I 100% agree. It's like saying sorry for taking up space, or saying sorry for being confident in who you are.
So how, I mean, because you speak quite confidently, especially for someone who's Irish/UK, as I said, they tend to be more apologetic. The American pageant girls seem to have fewer issues owning it. I don't know if it's a cultural thing. Obviously, Americans, as a general stereotype, they're almost bred to believe in themselves. They recite the Pledge of Allegiance every day. So how did you develop that self-confidence in yourself? Was it through the gymnastics was it through your pageant career so far?
I think that's a question I always get asked myself. I think my confidence came, like, I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for the people in my life, like, say, my own family, aunts and uncles, friends, always being so supportive. And I was kind of like, if I can be an Irish gymnast when I'm younger, I can kind of be whatever I want to do, and I shouldn't have to be apologizing for who I am. And just because I am confident in my voice, and sometimes that comes off as, oh, Laura Martin might think she's great, and that's a comment that's come across before. And I'm like, I should be allowed to think I'm great because I aspire to do great things. I have done great things, and I continue to do great things. So I should be allowed to be confident in who I am. And I don't think I should come on and be apologetic, because I don't think a future Miss Ireland, or fingers crossed, hopeful Miss World, should have to apologize for who they are and being confident in themselves. So as I said, I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for the people in my life. And again, bring it back to the volunteering. If I can be that one person in a young girl's life to give her confidence, then I think the job is done.
So in terms of, let's say, advice, let's try and boil it down to a piece of advice or a couple of pieces of advice in terms of building the confidence, because it is a huge issue, as I said, not just in Ireland and the UK, and not just with women, but the world in general. But if you had, let's say, a young girl or young woman watching this, and this has happened with me very often, they're struggling to find their confidence. And it's very easy to tell them to just be themselves. But if you spent, 20 or 30 years of your life deliberately not doing that because you don't want to be judged, and then remember, when the first time you do it, people say you are full of yourself, or, you're arrogant, let's say. So what would your advice be in terms of battling that?
I think there's a saying, and I really dislike it. It's fake it until you make it. And I don't think anybody should have to fake who they are. Again, if I could give anyone advice, it's be humble in your heart and confident in your voice, and just give everything. I give everything 110%. Whatever I put my name down to, I will give it everything I have, because nobody is going to do it for you, but you're the only person who can do it for yourself. I think that's one thing I learned, is if I want something, I have to work at it, and I have to believe in myself, and nobody's going to do anything for me if I want it.
I think that's very true. I'm not a huge fan of the fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
I have several issues with that, but work it until you make it. I do understand, because when I'm coaching girls, a lot of the time I say, well, if you want confidence, if you've worked your heart and soul for something for, I mean, you would probably understand this as a gymnast. I don't know how much you trained as a gymnast, but the gymnasts here that I used to work with, even when they were 13, 14, they would be training 5 days a week, 6 days a week, probably 2 or 3 hours every day, coming in on the weekends. Was that your experience as an Irish gymnast as well, that level of sort of commitment?
Yeah, it was. It was a 6-7 day training, maybe 2 to 3 times a day at the weekend. Like my whole summers and everything was just training every single day. And I think sport brings a massive thing for confidence, especially in young girls. Like, unfortunately, I had to leave gymnastics because I had a very bad spinal and neck injury. But then I went back training, and now I'm a Thai boxer. So I'm like, from gymnastics to Thai boxing.
Is that, I can't pronounce it. Is it Muay Thai?
Yeah, Muay Thai.
That form.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't know that. That's amazing. I've often said that I wish more pageant girls would take up combat sports, not because it's not so they can beat someone's head in, but so because I really think that it develops confidence. I mean, can you just speak to the importance of gymnastics, obviously, for yourself growing up, and now taking up combat sports? How important has that been in helping you develop the confidence?
Oh, massively. I wanted to be a boxer when I was younger, and I was 12. My mom wouldn't let me in case I broke my nose. So then I say about last year, maybe 2 years ago, just before COVID, I started kickboxing. So then I moved into Thai boxing. And I think having a combat sport, and especially if you're in a pageant and people hear, Thai boxer, they automatically assume, violence, because they want to fight everyone. I'm like, no, it's a great confidence builder for girls, because you don't meet many girls who are into boxing, who are into Thai boxing. I do, like, I'm not going to lie, there's times when I come in with the bruises on my knuckles from training. I remember I was at a shoot there last week, and I looked down at my foot and it was covered in massive bruise. And I was like, give me 2 seconds there. And I went in and did the makeup on my foot. So I definitely think there's an element where people think, she likes to fight, so she'll fight other people. I'm like, no, that it's the complete opposite. It's just a confidence builder, and I just love to stay active, really, to be honest.
Well, I guess especially during lockdown, that's been a challenge for a lot of people. So if you're able to do any sort of sport on a
Yeah.
regular basis, I think that's a great thing. I mean, I have to ask you. I mean, you're Irish. You're doing combat sports, so I have to ask you, what's your opinion on Conor McGregor? Because when he came out, I mean, talking about confident, he was super confident, maybe bordering on a bit too much. So a lot of that's just the showmanship.
Yeah.
And now recently, it looks like he's sort of had a midlife sort of change of heart. He's less that. He looks like he's changed to me from when he came out. He was sort of very, very, in your face. Now he's a bit less so. So I mean, is he a national hero to you guys? Because he's quite polarizing.
I knew this question was going to come up if I mentioned that I was into like Thai boxing.
Yeah,
So yeah,
of
I
course.
think it's the MMA the mixed martial arts, that he would be into. And of course, like, you can't deny that he is a phenomenal sportsman. Some things that he says I don't fully agree with.
Yeah.
I don't think I can't ignore that fact, to be honest. But he is a massive, like, sports icon. But I don't know if you've heard of her. Her name is Katie Taylor. She's a
No.
massive, you should check her up. She's a massive Irish boxer. She would be like a big national icon, especially myself, I suppose, only kind of starting combat sports within the last like year or two, and having Katie Taylor, she's just such a role model for young women in Ireland. So if you're ever thinking of Conor McGregor, you have to think of Katie Taylor as well. So definitely have a look at her. Yeah, she's a big sportswoman.
Okay, I will do. Conor has often talked about, and this has sort of been a thing working with the Irish pageant community that seems to keep coming up. It's kind of that the young boy from this small town in Ireland and taking on the world and showing the world what Ireland can do. And and he's very proud of his Irish heritage. It's always up there front and foremost. And with the pageant girls as well, it seems to be a recurring theme that, to get a chance to represent Ireland on an international stage, let's say through pageantry. I mean, I understand it's a big deal for anyone, whether it's Australian, American, representing your country on the international stage. But the Irish in particular seem to be super, super proud to represent their country, their heritage, what it stands for, and how amazing the people are. And I'm going to assume for you that's a huge, if you were able to do that, it would be a huge honor for yourself. Can you just maybe speak to why it's such an important thing for Irish women and Irish people in general to be able to represent their country and very often the small town they come from?
So I have represented Ireland multiple times for gymnastics, so I do understand what it takes to be national representative and go abroad and represent Ireland. And I think it's because, we're a smaller country, don't get me wrong, but I think we're a smaller country, but we have such big personalities. And I think to be able to bring a small piece of Ireland, people always think of Ireland, everyone has freckles, everyone has red hair, you live next door to a leprechaun. Everyone thinks that about Ireland until you actually come here and you meet the people. And I've lived in several counties in Ireland, and every county has been different and unique in its own way. So to be able to bring a piece of that and represent Ireland abroad would be an absolute massive honor. It's because, we're a smaller country and everyone thinks that we all have freckles and red hair until you see myself and I have the dark hair and the dark eyes and nobody thinks I'm Irish. But until you hear the accent.
Well, it's almost like I can imagine someone challenging you to prove that you are Irish, because like, you don't look Irish, so you mustn't be Irish. I've had a couple of friends who competed in international pageants for Ireland, and their roommates have commented, "Oh, she's a lovely girl, but she doesn't speak English." So I don't know where that person came from. But in terms of representing Ireland, I mean, it is. I've not met an Irish person who isn't an Irish person I don't like, because you all seem to be super friendly, super happy, super warm, super engaging. Now, your UK brethren, we often make fun of them because, they're very doom and gloom. It's very wet there. And you often ask a UK person how they're going, and it's like, oh, it could be worse. It's kind of the opposite. So what is it about Ireland? Is it something in the water? Is it something in the air? Is it just the family that you grew up with? How are you guys consistently so positive and happy?
That's a good question. I suppose for myself, how I'm always positive and happy is because I suppose the family that I've grown up with, you watch Irish on TV and, I don't know, for example, Irish movies. And okay, it does rain here a lot as well, but there's a lot to be grateful of as well, because how can you not be positive when everyone around you is they're just trying to live their best life and having, as they say, like just having the crack as well whilst they're at it. So I suppose for me, it's just always being around people who are just always up for having a laugh, to be honest. Nobody in Ireland, I always feel like, takes themselves too seriously. And if you do, people are like, oh, sure, what are they over there, taking themselves a bit seriously? Everyone's just having a bit of a laugh and just trying to get through life, to be honest.
I love that I know the word crack. That's one of the first things that I learned in working with so many Irish girls was what's the crack, and you're like differentiating that from what the Americans think crack is. That's always a sense of enjoyment. If, let's say, someone watching this, and even for myself, I don't know that much about Irish culture. I've worked with some of my best friends are Irish, as I've told you. But if someone watching this doesn't know much about Irish culture and wants to learn more about it, is there a show that you could watch? Is there a YouTube clip you could watch? Because one of the things within international pageants, you obviously have people from around the country, around the world, right? And very often with Australia, they all think it's Bondi Rescue. They think it's shrimp on the barbie. Sometimes I think there's kangaroos going over the harbour bridge, or that it's Crocodile Dundee. And you just have to go, you know what, we're not that, right? So in terms of finding out more about genuinely what the Irish people are about, is there like a show you could watch or a documentary?
I would love to come on here and say there was a very intellectual or sophisticated documentary, but they're not. So the ones you have to watch, I'm going to miss some now. It'll be like, oh, she missed this one. Okay, so the first one is Father Ted. That's a big one. That's a big Irish. It's like a sitcom kind of thing. It's a comedy. That one's really famous. My favorite one is another one. It's called, I wish again it was real intellectual, but it's not. It's called Hardy Box. And I know it's a group and they're from Mayo. And I think it's because I resonate so much with it. I could just watch it over and over again. And there is another one and it's a Cork one and it's called The Young Offenders. So I would say I'm definitely missing a few now. So if there was anything that you wanted to understand Irish people, the first one to watch is Father Ted. I wish I would come on here and be like, oh, it was a piece documentary. No, it's a complete comedy. And from that, you'll be like, that's what the Irish people are like. It's basically about three priests, and they live in a house together in a place called Craggy Island. And it's just basically what the priesthood is about in Ireland. And again, it's all about having a laugh, and none of them take themselves too seriously.
Do you think it would be possible to do an intellectual documentary about Ireland? Because I have to say, I don't think there's anything intellectual really that's come out of Australia. I mean, you have Crocodile Dundee, you have Bondi Rescue, you have Neighbours and Home and Away, and none of those are intellectual sort of ventures. Can you imagine there being an intellectual, when I say intellectual, I mean like a drier kind of documentary? Because it seems to me that when I think of Ireland anyway, it seems immediately the humor, the warmth, and that's a good thing, right?
Oh yeah, no, I definitely don't think we could have a drier humor. I don't think anyone in Ireland, anyone that I've met, has never had a dry humor. As I said, I've lived in multiple counties and every person is different to the next one I meet. So I don't think you could have a dry humor documentary about Ireland. We do have a few, and it's like they're not dry, but they're well known. They're called like Reeling in the Years, and they're a bit more like news and kind of what's been going on the last couple of years. Those ones are quite popular when they come around. But no, I don't think you could have an intellectual, drier humor.
Okay. I have seen Dairy Girls because my podcast co-host is from Derry, and she said you have to watch Dairy Girls, and I watched it. I found it really, really funny. Yeah. I can't say that's particularly intellectual either. Have you seen any of that?
I have seen it. I've seen Dairy Girls, and there's a Dairy Girls mural up in Derry, and I actually have a picture in front of it. That's
a
also
mural.
Yeah, it's like painted on the side. Like it's like a national icon now at this stage. Yeah, so I've watched that. Yeah, it is very funny. I'm waiting for the new episodes now to come out myself.
Is it a recent thing? I've only sort of just started watching the first season. So is it a really recent series, or is it still
It
going
is.
now?
No, I think they're scheduled for another season. I think now, don't quote me on that, but yeah, it is recent enough.
Right. Okay. It seems to me that the different counties in Ireland have really, really different accents,
Yeah.
cultures. Is that true? Because it almost seems like it's almost a different country. Like you're all united, as I said, by that Irish humor, the Irish warmth. But I mean, every county seems to be very, very different.
It is, yeah, it's very different. And as I said, I've lived in multiple counties in Ireland, so I can definitely say that every county is different. And when I'm in Mayo and I start talking, they know instantly I'm from Cork because of my accent and the way I talk. Whenever I talk, I always say like, or I'm like, or I go, you know yourself. And sure, nobody would have a clue what I'm talking about if I was in another country. But no, they're all very, very different. Like people know I'm from the south. Like once I open my mouth, and I wouldn't have a strong Cork accent. I remember
Okay.
before I had someone come up to me and they were like, "Oh, where are you from?" They thought I was like Italian or Spanish, and I opened my mouth and I started talking. He just turned to me and goes, "Oh, you're from Cork." I was like, I didn't even have to say where I was from.
Is Cork? Forgive, I don't know anything about Irish geography. In terms of Cork and Galway,
Yeah.
how close are those two? Are they anything to do with one another?
No, so Cork and Galway are about 2.5 hours apart from each other. So Cork is down south and Galway is in the west. Galway is just under Mayo. So
Okay.
so yeah, Galway is west and Cork is in the south. And then so you've got Dublin then on the east, and then the ones I'm not great now at geography myself, and then you've got up north then as well. And then you've got the Midlands.
Okay.
I
So
left
I'm
geography
just
to go into engineering, so my geography is not great either.
that's fair enough. I mean, it's something you can look up very easily, so it's not like you need to remember it. It's just with the accent, you're reminding me of one of my Irish friends, and I believe she's from Galway. And I just keep thinking the accent and even the use of the word like,
Yeah.
it's exactly how she speaks as well. So it is a very, very distinctive accent. Do you ever have any issues with anyone understanding your accent? Like the joke is always people can't understand the Scottish, but everyone seems to be able to understand the Irish.
Yeah, I've never had anyone have an issue with my tone or anything or how I speak. I suppose because, as I said, I've lived in multiple, so I don't have like a set accent. I don't have a set Mayo accent.
Yeah.
I don't have a set Cork accent. It's kind of a mix. And I know if somebody's not understanding me very well, I'll speak a lot slower. That's my problem. I speak very fast. My mom's always like, "Would you slow down? Would you slow down talking?" I can talk about 90 miles a minute, 90 words a second, I'd say. So I'm trying to slow it down here now a bit.
I think that's an Irish thing as well. Now that I think about it, I don't really know, especially when you guys get excited or passionate about something, which is every 5 minutes. You guys don't speak. I can't imagine an Irish person speaking slowly. I don't think I've ever heard of it.
I
Don't
don't
you
think I
guys
have
think you
either.
all speak? You get really excited and passionate about something, and it's great, and then you start speaking really quickly, right? That's
Yeah,
part of the Irish charm.
no, definitely. When I get very excited, I speak very fast and I start to speak. I get louder. People always say to me, I get louder as I speak just because I'm getting
Yeah.
excited. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that, to be honest.
No, well, I've been to St. Paddy's Day's celebrations over here in Australia, and I can vouch for the fact that you guys are not quiet, especially when you've had a few Guinnesses in you, because we had Guinness on tap, and there was about 1,000, 2,000 Irish people in one room. This was pre-COVID,
Wow.
obviously. It
Yeah.
definitely wasn't quiet.
No.
Had a great time, but it definitely wasn't quiet. If you were next door, you definitely would have known. Um, Laura, let's talk about you mentioned the podcast, which I just have it over here is Future Thinking. Can
Yeah.
you tell us a little bit about that? What got you to start that?
So I co-host Future Thinking with my friend Ali. So she's been a volunteer for a long, long time as well with Foróige, and she's a young European leader. And I think we've always kind of had this connection. We met through Miss Mayo, and we always kind of had this connection because I would be big into volunteering and charity work, and so would she. And we always kind of was like, oh, we have to collab and do something together. And then I came up with
Mm.
the series and the podcast, and I was like, you're probably the best person that I would like to do this with because we've such similar interests. So it's basically just about the importance of giving back and how everybody can help in their community. And again, I always say it doesn't matter how big or small your contribution is because a big idea means a big difference in especially in a young person's life because she works with young people and so do I. And I think that's how it kind of came about. And then we also, like, I got speakers from charities I work with. So Foróige, Big Brother, Big Sister, Mayo, I do a lot of work with. So they're an organization in Mayo for children with disabilities. And I'd be involved with them because my younger brother is autistic. So I would have seen his struggles. So I like to help children with disabilities because sometimes I feel like they're forgotten about. And also the woman who runs, so I'm with Considerate Cakes. So they're an organization for children in direct provision and those who are homeless. So we bake cakes and we do like food drives for them. So I got all of them involved. So we've just finished season 1. So we're hoping to do season 2 now sometime in September and getting more people that we work with. Basically just sharing the importance of other charities in Ireland and how people can get involved, and that you don't have to have experience, years and years experience, that you can start at any age. I was never a member of Foróige growing up. I only got into it in my early 20s. And I already see the difference that I can make in a young person's life. I'm like, imagine all the amazing people that I know that can make difference in young people's lives.
How much have you tied in your, I mean, I think it's amazing that you've done the charity work before the pageant, because sometimes there are some people who do it just because of the pageant. How much have you been able to tie in your existing charity work with, obviously, Miss World, the whole slogan is beauty with a purpose. How much have you been able to tie those two journeys together?
Do you know, it's actually pretty seamlessly for me because, as you said, like, I've worked with these charities for years beforehand. So it's just me doing the work that I've already done, and I continue to do it. Like, hopefully in the future, I would love to have my own charity. But you know, that's something that I would have to give 110% to. So there's no point in starting it now just because of a competition that I'm in. So I think pretty seamlessly they've kind of blended together because it's something I've always been involved with. So it's great to kind of have the Miss Ireland, the Miss Mayo kind of platform to go with it. So that has helped a lot. That has helped me a lot. And just to kind of get it out there that I work with 3 children's charities like together. So it's great to kind of get it out there being like, look, everybody can give back and everybody can help with a charity. So beauty with a purpose. Like, now I have my project in mind and I'll be starting it this week. And for me, it's a pretty big project. It's a very different project I've ever seen anyone do. So I'm looking forward to share that as well. And it's with the charities I already work with and people from the podcast. So it's nice to kind of get them involved with my Miss Ireland journey as well.
That sounds exciting. It's been impossible in my position to keep up with what's happening to each pageant through COVID. So what has been the lead up so far? I mean, given that we've had a pandemic, and what's sort of the next event in terms of the Miss Ireland competition itself?
So we just had our launches and we had our first round judging, which I'm very, very happy with. So now next week so it's called Top Model. So it'll be a full day in Dublin and we have like our top model event, and then the winner will go on. Whoever wins that then will go on and become top model. So that's the next thing. And then after that, then we have our second round of judging. So we'll be asked a question based on our first round. Our first round was 2 minutes where we spoke about ourselves straight. You just entered the chat, you talked about yourself for 2 minutes, and then you got off. So that's the round then after. It'll be our second round judging. And then the final then is looking to be on the 5th of September.
Right. Okay. And is everything able to be in person? Because I know the UK is set to basically open everything up in under 2 weeks and just say, well, we're going to try and live with this and see what happens. Is Ireland doing the same thing? No,
Ireland won't be doing the same thing, but we are hoping to be able to have people at the Miss Ireland final, depending on what restrictions are. Like, we don't have any indoor dining now open at the moment. So I think the government are just trying to get everybody vaccinated until that they can open, I suppose, just with all the new variants that are coming in. So they're going to have it in person. I don't think something like this that you could have virtual. I don't think it would be the same. So they're going to look to have it in person. Yeah, it's all like booked and everything.
Yeah, no, it'd definitely be preferable in person. I mean, you know, you can't replace it. It's like gymnastics. You're performing in front of people. It's not the same if you're doing it in home. I'm not that you could do probably gymnastics at home, but, you know, on a Zoom meeting and a webcam, it's definitely not the same thing. There's no atmosphere. Laura, so we've talked about a few things, obviously the pageantry, your gymnastics, the Thai boxing, the charity work. In terms of outside of that, because that's a lot already, what else do you do for work, for hobbies, to relax? If you guys ever do that? Normally pageant girls don't take any time off to relax, but outside of all the other stuff.
I rarely relax now, to be honest. I suppose because I'm always up the walls. Yeah, I work full time as a marketing and design manager for there's about 11 companies in the west of Ireland, so I manage those. And I also recently I took on a remote role as a designer for a company in Dubai and Abu Dhabi.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I recently took that on. I'd say with only this week, so now I'm working an extra. Well, I work 7 days a week anyway, so it's an extra couple of hours. And I also own my own business, so it's a marketing, design, development, strategy company. So it's called Laura Keir Design. So I'd have a good few of my own clients as well on top of that. So yeah, I would be kept busy. Say with design, I know it's a lot. And I just finished my master's as well a couple of weeks ago. So I suppose I would be really, really big into education. I love to read. I love to read more so like journals and like say like scientific journals. That's what I'd be kind of into. I'd be really big into technology. So my degree is in design and I have 2 in computer science and maths. So that's how I relax, is basically, I know it's pretty, it's, look, we all have our things. So yeah, that's how I'd relax then, is I'd kind of watch any, say, technology that's coming up. But one way I do like to relax is I do like to watch TikTok the odd time, but I'm definitely watching say design. I'm watching design strategy and like life coaching on TikTok. That's probably how I relax, to be honest.
I mean, the thing that strikes me out of all of that is you said you just finished your master's 2 weeks ago. So
yeah,
you were finishing your master's at the same time that you're enrolled in a pageant, at the same time that you're working 7 days a week. So you obviously hate sleep, right?
No, I love to sleep. I think sleep is one of the most important things you can do.
You don't get any, surely, if you're doing all those things.
I do. I get sleep now because I'm finished my master's. I did my master's for 2 years because I did it part-time, and I just finished I got my results a couple of weeks ago. And I did a thesis. I think it was just under 50,000 words. So I did, so it was a design proposal on augmented reality and artificial intelligence in the education of children with autism spectrum disorders. So it's basically how you can implement. I know people are like, what is that? I'm like, it took me a while to understand it myself. So yeah, I'd be big into like designing proposals. I did it for my final year of my degree as well. I designed a proposal it was like a homework aid for children with autism, because I saw from me having a younger brother who's autistic, I saw how much technology influenced his life and how good he was at it. So I was like, okay, he struggles with his homework and he struggles with his schoolwork at that age. So I was like, how can we incorporate using technology for children with autism? So I suppose that's how my research thesis came on then, was designing a proposal using augmented reality and artificial intelligence for children with autism specifically, and how it can help with their education during schoolwork or for homework also. So I did my master's. I did a 2-year master's while I was working 40, 50 plus hours a week.
I mean, it's fascinating to me on a personal level because your degree is almost exactly the same as mine. I don't talk about my degree that often, but my degree was in computer science and mathematics. And for my final project, I didn't do a master's of it, so I didn't do a thesis, but for our final project, I did a project on artificial intelligence. What are your thoughts on technology? Because I'm huge into technology, not just because of all this live stuff that I do, but I do see it as having a lot of benefits in terms of what it's been able to help us do. Specifically, like, we wouldn't be having this conversation if someone hadn't invented, YouTube or live streaming like that. There are a lot of people who have other opinions on technology. Some people hate social media, and obviously it comes with its challenges.
Yeah.
That's a given. What's your personal opinion just with the social media and the technology? Where do you sit on that sort of fence?
I think everything has its pros and cons, to be honest. Like, you can't switch out a child's in-person education with a teacher for a tablet for the rest of their lives. It's not going to work. I think it has to be a happy medium. It has to be a good balance of using technology and education, or say social media. You kind of have to have that healthy balance and understanding that everything you see online is, as a designer and somebody who has experience with Photoshop, etc., in my line of work, that 90% of what you see online probably isn't real. And I think that's the thing a lot of girls find difficult to understand, and especially having technology. And, there's a lot of access now to the likes of Facetune and filters. I think sometimes if you need to take a step back from technology, that's okay too. If you need to take a step back from social media, because it can be very immersive. It can be very, very overwhelming, because if you don't understand technology, it can almost feel like that you're being attacked or kind of something like that. You're just being immersed into this environment that you're not used to. So with me having an understanding, and with yourself having an understanding of technology, you're kind of like, okay, I know what's real and I know what's not real, especially with social media, because you know how things work. And I think that's the thing with
It could be.
yeah.
It's increasingly difficult to tell sometimes. I mean, you talk about Facetune, and Facetune, I think, has this. It's the body morphing or the shape changing, or now the deep fakes that are coming out, where you literally can't tell whether something you're watching is real anymore. Like I saw a Tom Cruise deep fake; it's gone viral.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult to tell that that is not actually Tom Cruise saying those things. So you just having completed your master's, you must be, I mean, the rate of technology and what it can do and how easily it can do it, that's pretty scary for myself, even as someone who's used technology and studied it. Have you noticed the similar sort of trend in what people are able to do now?
Oh, it's frightening what people are able to do. Like even in my line of work, like designing, it's scary how you can change things very, very easily with a couple of clicks of a button. And we'd have that understanding of what you can do and what you can't do. And a lot of people, you know, it's not no fault of their own. They don't have that understanding. So as I said, you become obsessive and like submerged in this fake life, especially through social media. And definitely, as I said earlier, like everything, technology, social media, everything in life has its pros and cons. And I think sometimes when you have to be like, look, I have to take a step away from this because it's not good for my social health, my mental health, then I think that's definitely it's the right move to make. Sometimes technology can be a bit overwhelming. It can be a bit much if you don't understand it.
100%. I think looking at everything with a bit of a grain of salt, a bit of cynicism as well, in terms of especially Instagram, and then young women and young men do this increasingly, comparing themselves with celebrities or influencers on Instagram, and you have to look at it and go, that even she or he might not look like that when, you know, that you have no idea whether that's real or not. And the faking, the algorithms, the photoshopping has gotten so good, sometimes you really can't tell. In terms of design, I'll just ask you this, and then we'll move towards a close. What's the secret to good design? Because I'm fascinated with good design, UI, UX, especially with apps, the apps that are great to use and the apps you look at them and just go, something is wrong with this. What's the secret to good design?
I think the secret good design, it doesn't come down to skill. It comes down to your eye. It comes down to your eye and how fast your eye can pick something up. And that comes with training and just looking at things like, you know, I remember I had an old manager before, and she was like, Laura, she's like, I don't understand how your brain works. She was like, I find it, especially people who are creative. She's like, I don't understand. Like I could walk past, say like a shopping center, and I could see a tea towel, and I could take inspiration from that for my next design. And I think with being a good designer, it definitely comes down to the eye and how you see things and how you train things. And instantly, as you said, like if I see something and it doesn't look right, I know instantly it doesn't look right. Not because of my skill, it's just because I've trained my eye to see what is good and what's not good. And it helps. It helps with everything, to be honest. And I think it's because it's in some way it's a problem solving. And you probably noticed that yourself with like the computer science, the maths, design, and engineering. They all kind of follow the same problem solving. That's always the kind of underlying part of it.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And that's probably why I actually found programming. I was more into the programming side of things. Why I found that so satisfying is because when you do solve that problem, normally it was with programming in my case, it just feels really, really good. But you're right, other people sort of don't understand how that brain works. Particularly what you mentioned, like the tea towel example, I find myself doing that sort of thing all the time, taking bits and pieces from random places in my life and then bringing it into pageantry, for example. And people will think, oh, that's such a great idea. How did you come up with it? And I have to be like, I didn't actually come up with it. I stole it, but from over there, not from the pageantry industry. I love that. I have to ask you, favorite piece of design or pieces of design? And when it comes to, I mean, like the user interface, the user experience, or logos or website, do you have any like just designs or brands that you looked at and gone, oh my God, that's perfect?
I think myself, like even designing now, I think there's not one I could think of that like, wow, it's perfect. There's probably one in my head now that hasn't come to me. But I don't think you could look at something and ever say it's perfect, because if you're a designer and you're looking at something and you're like, wow, that's perfect, there's always going to be something wrong. I think I could think something's perfect, but you might be like, no, I hate the look of that. So there's nothing in my mind that I could think, oh wow, that brand is phenomenal. Like I look at like designer brands now, for like instance, and I think they're always modern. Unfortunately, I suppose there's some like fashion elements to it where they're always on top of trends. So I think just keeping an eye on trends, and I think they'll always start from like the fashion industry first. They'll always know what people are looking for. But there's not one brand now that would come to my top of my head. I'd probably finish this and I'll probably think of about 10 brands. But yeah, it's always the case. There's nothing now on the top of my head that I'd be like, wow, that's an amazing brand. Like I would just kind of look at fashion brands. And I suppose because I would come from a background of working retail for like 7 years. And then I worked as a senior designer for a large Irish fashion company for a few years then. So it was always fashion, I suppose, that I would be looking at rather than technology or anything like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I asked because I was interviewing an Australian designer over here, not even probably a month ago. Similar industry to yourself, and she was talking about logos and typography, but specifically logos. And she was talking about the Airbnb logo, and how that came to be, and how the entire Airbnb issue was how to build trust. And then she referred me to a TED talk, which was fascinating, how to build trust through design. Because when you think about it, Airbnb is essentially a brand where you allow a stranger to live in your house. It's like Uber is a brand where you get picked up and go in a stranger's car, which as a kid, I don't know if you were taught this in Ireland, but that's the last thing that you do as a child is get into a stranger's car. But now we're more willing to do that than go into a taxi. And it's all because of these apps that we use every single day. And they have to be so intuitive, because these days people don't give you that second chance. If it's not, and I had the same thing. If I don't know how to use your app intuitively, I stop using it because it's just too much hard work. So design to me is absolutely fascinating.
Same. And myself, like now I'm going back to college now in September again. I got off the place. I just got an email. I thought I was being scammed. Because I didn't apply for this course. I thought scammers had just gotten really good and they knew I was into education. I got an email from a college called UC, so it's University College Dublin, so a big university in Ireland, and it was for UX design. So I'll be starting with that now in September, because like my dream job now, I have multiple dream jobs. I would love to be a UX designer, developer, or I really want to have my own software company for the application for children with autism, and I want to have my own charity as well, I suppose, for young girls. And I suppose there's an element where I'm like, oh, I could bring young girls and design and technology all in together. But I'm like, no, I think I would rather focus on disadvantaged children. But yeah, I'll be starting that course now come September. So, and I suppose it's an area I'll always be interested in myself, especially user experience. And I don't know, it's like a form of people watching kind of thing. When you go holidays and you're obsessed with watching people, it's how you're watching people use things and training people to use things in a certain way. And I don't know, is that a weird thing or is it a very normal thing to be obsessed with that kind of design?
Well, I don't know if it's normal, because most people probably don't think like that, but it's incredibly important because everything nowadays can be tracked and measured, as I'm sure you know. And even with UX and UI, there are now heat maps where they can look at where you've looked at the most and which buttons you've hit, which buttons you haven't, and where the eyes have gone. And it's fascinating and scary at the same time how much they know about our behavior and how much they can actually predict it based on past behavior. But I think you're going to find that fascinating. And for myself, having worked with a lot of young kids, the ability of young children to learn and to teach themselves with technology faster than probably any adult can teach them, and how quickly they learn how to use things, it's scary. Like I've worked with young kids, and almost universally, the 5-year-old is better at using the app or the phone or the tablet than the mother or father is. And the mother and father are supposed to try and keep the young kid under control. They don't know what TikTok is or Facetune is or all these things. And they're like, you can do that? And the kid's like, yeah, that's going to be a big challenge.
I'll tell you a story now. So in my final year of my first degree, so my designs was called visual communications. I had to do like testing on people. So I was like, oh, I'll do one on my brother, my dad, just for a laugh and see how I get on. I pulled up a video and I said, I gave him the 2 phones and I goes, okay, who can find this the fastest? My younger brother at the time, I'd say he was about 8, maybe even younger. He had it up in a couple of seconds because he didn't search. He didn't type anything in. He spoke into the phone and found it almost instantly. I remember before I had something projected up on the wall. I put Netflix up on the wall and I projected it. And he got up on the wall and he tried to like tap it. And I remember watching him being like, this is just nuts. I was like, I wouldn't have. He just thought that you could touch anything. Anything is a touch screen. Even if it's projected up on the wall, it's still going to work. And he was like slapping the wall and he wasn't understanding why it wasn't moving. And I remember watching him being like, I was actually fascinated because that's how he was so trained from using technology. That was his experience, was everything is touchscreen. Everything is instant. I don't have to wait for anything.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when phones didn't have touch screens as much. It was more a physical keyboard with Blackberries and things like that.
Yeah, you and me both. I remember the dial-up.
The dial-up, yeah. I remember when they went exclusively to touchscreen and they got rid of physical keys, and I was quite upset. I'm like, I hate using touchscreen because I can't type as fast. I want the physical feel so I know where my thumbs are. Like on a keyboard, there are little things on the F key and the J key so that you literally know where your hands are, and a touchscreen doesn't have that. And I still, to some extent, don't like touchscreens hugely. But there's no physical keys on anything anymore. So I can understand that your brother's like, just assumes that everything is touchscreen because
and everything
for him,
is instant. Everything's at the fingertips. Everything. So like even when we're waiting for food now, he doesn't understand that sometimes you have to wait for things because they're so used to everything being instantaneous that it's like, this is work. If I just hit it so many times, it's going to work. But no, it's the buttons. I know. I remember watching him hitting the wall and I was like, what? It took me a second to be like, what is he doing? And I was like, he thinks the wall is a touchscreen. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, he's clearly the genius that's in this room because it didn't even enter my head that we could have touchscreen projectors.
Oh, I mean, you did work in augmented reality, and that to me is a fascinating field, as opposed to virtual reality. I know the two are somewhat similar, but very, very different.
Yeah.
And this idea that you can augment your reality and literally reach for things and manipulate things, it's I'm really excited to see what that can do.
Yeah, it's like the game. I referenced that a lot in my thesis was Pokemon Go. That was a big thing. Like that
was huge. The issue with that, we had a couple of issues here in Australia because young people would be fascinated with capturing the Pokemons, and they would go into the middle of a road and cause accidents because they were so obsessed with getting on their phone and looking for the Pokemon. They forgot that they were walking into a road and they would be catching Pokemons in the middle. I remember that. That was a scary time.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, I use it a lot now and the Kinect, the Xbox Kinect. It's just mad what technology can do.
Yeah, it's not going to slow down, that's for sure. No, exciting times ahead. Laura, just before we move to the close, final 10 questions. Anyone that you want to give a shout out to for supporting you along your journey?
Yes, actually, there's multiple. So I suppose of course, I have to thank my own family, my mother, my father, both my brothers. They've always been so supportive. I'd like to thank all my friends, especially my friend Niamh. She was like, Laura, if you ever win Miss Ireland, she was like, you have to thank me on stage. So I'd like to thank my friend Niamh. And I suppose just everybody that's been in the Miss Ireland journey and people I've never met before and just messaging me on Instagram. And I've never met them. They've only found me through Miss Mayo. They've only found me through Miss Ireland. And it's just like, I suppose, building those connections. And like a lot of the people now, they would come from India because as my mother is half Indian. And I suppose that kind of comes into it a lot. So there's multiple people, I suppose mainly my family and my own friends that I would like to thank. As I said, I wouldn't be me if it wasn't for them.
Your mum is from India?
No, so my mom's half Indian. So my mom's half English, half Indian.
Oh, I was just going to say, if it's Indian/Irish, I would have to hear her accent because I would be fascinated to know what an Indian/Irish accent, if you rolled those two together, what that would sound like. I can't imagine.
Irish kind of language language. So when she's on the phone and she's over to people, accent, yes. So when she's over on the phone to somebody in England, you can definitely hear the English accent. But then when she's in Cork, you know that she's a Cork woman.
Okay. Yep. Okay. All right. Perfect. Laura, let's run through the final 10 questions. Not a speed round, but if you want to answer them quickly, then go for it. So first question is, what is your favorite word?
I have 3. So it's what's the story? I always say that, like, basically what's happening, like, how are you doing? What's the story? Or any news.
I thought you'd say, what's the crack?
What's the crack? No, I wouldn't say what's the crack now. What's the crack? Yeah. Actually, I would. Yeah, what's the crack? That's 3 words, not 1. So that's kind of cheating.
Perfect. Okay, what's your least favorite word? Question 2.
Failure. I hate the word fail and I hate the word failure. I don't use them. I don't allow my friends to use them. I think you don't fail anything in life. You always have the opportunity to do something again. So if I hear the word somebody, I failed something, I'm a failure, or I dropped out, I don't allow those words in my life, because you have the opportunity to do everything again.
Question 3. In life, what gets you excited? What turns you on?
I suppose what gets me excited is seeing other people succeed. Yeah, of course I'm in a competition, but I don't see myself competing in life. I want everybody to succeed because there's enough space in this world for everybody to succeed and be the best version of themselves that they can be.
So that's what turns you on. What about question 4? What turns you off?
What turns me off? I wouldn't say it more so turns me off, but it's people that try to put other people down for no apparent reason, just because they see something in that person that they would like to see in themselves. I suppose it wouldn't be a turn off. It's more something that kind of disappoints me, to be honest.
Fair enough. Question 5. What sound or noise do you love?
That's a very good question. Actually, I like when I wake up in the morning and there's like ponies out my back. I live in Ireland, but there's like horses and ponies out my back for some reason. So I open the window and I can hear, I know, I can hear them in the morning and I can hear the water. So that's always something quite nice. So I open my window at like 7, half 7 and listen to that.
Wow. Okay. That's definitely a sound I don't have where I'm living. Question 6. What sound or noise do you hate?
The iPhone alarm. I don't understand why there have been a better default alarm for waking me up in the morning.
But I mean, you want an alarm to be so obnoxious it does wake you up, right? And I woke up to the iPhone alarm this morning. I hate it so much, but it wakes you up because you hate it.
It does. I remember I was in Hawaii and it was a time where they thought the missile, I think, was going off. And I remember I was asleep and my phone, I thought it was my alarm. My phone went absolutely mental. I'd never heard an alarm like before. It was like a fire alarm coming out of my iPhone saying that there's like a possible like missile attack in Hawaii. I was like, what time is it? And I was asleep. So yeah, no, I think there's better alarms out there.
There was a missile attack coming. That's a thing that happens on your iPhone?
Yeah, apparently so. It sounds like a fire alarm. If you're ever wondering, it's not the alarm to wake you up, it's the fire alarm.
Oh, it's so funny you say that because literally I woke up to the iPhone alarm this morning. I hate the alarm so much that I will wake up 5 minutes early to turn it off.
Turn it off. I think subconsciously I do the same thing.
But I hate it. What I mean is I hate it so much I actually get out of bed. So it actually does its job. I don't hit snooze. I actually get out of bed to turn it off because I hate it that much. So I can agree with you on that one. Question 7. If you could have any one superpower, what would you pick and why?
I've thought about this quite often. So I would like to be in multiple places at once because as somebody who does work quite much with like volunteering and charity work, I think if I could duplicate me multiple times, I think I could help a lot more people than I do right now. I help a lot of people now, but I would like to help more. I think that's just my nature, to be honest.
It would also be nice to get out of the Irish weather, I think, and get some sun whilst you can also still be in Ireland and keep doing the good work. Question 8. What job or occupation, we talked a little bit about this, what job other than your own would you most like to attempt?
If I could attempt one, it would be, I'd love to be a doctor if I could attempt one. But if I had to be, and I hate this word, if I had to be realistic, because I don't think I'm going to be a doctor anytime soon because I have a fear of veins, I would like to own my own software company. It's mad. I've always had it. I'd like to own my own software company for the application for children with autism to help them with their education. That would be my ideal job.
Amazing. Do you have a specific fear of veins or just blood vessels in general?
No, blood I'm fine with, which is a bit nuts. It's veins and like arteries and small bones. I've had it since I was a child. I think it's because they're so thin and there's so many of them. I believe I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called trypophobia, where you don't like things in clusters. I've spoken about this a lot.
Is that the one that was set off also by iPhones, the 3 cameras that were together?
Yes.
I've heard about that one. Yes.
Yeah,
I read a news article on how people with that were being set off by the iPhone. You poor guys with your iPhones, and every time someone takes a photo of you, you've got 3 lenses on the back. You're like, oh.
I have that. So that's where my fear of veins, arteries, and small bones came from. I've always had it ever since secondary school. It's very strange. I don't know where it came from. So I can never work in the medical field, even if I wanted to.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, that's fascinating. All right. Question 9. What job would you definitely not like to attempt?
I would give everything a chance, to be honest. I don't think there's one job that I wouldn't like to not try. I like to try everything. I like to take every opportunity as it comes. And I definitely think I could do it. I think if somebody gave me a challenge, I could do any job, I think.
Sounds good to me. Final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
That's a tough one. I suppose I would like to hear, Laura, you've done the best that you could on this earth. You've given everything that you could. You've given 110% to everything, and that you've helped people along the way. And I suppose that's the most important thing to me, is being able to help other people. And I'd like that to be acknowledged whenever I do reach the pearly gates. I would like to know that I helped as many people as I could have somewhat of a better life.
Perfect. Well, Laura, it's been great chatting to you. That's about time. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. I had a great time. It was an honor.
And I'll keep you on the line, as I said, for just a second whilst I hang up with the audience. So thanks to everyone for watching, whether it's live or on the replay. And we will speak to you again next time. Well, bye for now. Thanks for watching. Just a reminder to you entrepreneurial types to come and join us at our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/the Pageant Boss. I'll see you inside and see you in the next episode.